Everybody, I'm Rahul Gupta. I actually recognize a lot of people out there. It's nice to see everybody. I'm going to first say I'll say I, but that's because I've gotten to work on all the projects that have been funded through this granting program. But the museum, what's the best way to say thank you? Because we've been able to do such work, such good work out of this. And each time we step back and look at it again, we find new ways to present the information and to engage students. And we've been able to do that, and the general public, but with students beginning in 4th grade and really diving in with particular school districts like the Highline School District and such, which we've had a partnership with for years, thanks to some of the contacts and friendships I've made over there. Very supportive. So I am going to share my screen, and there you are. No, where is it? There it is. You'd never know that I lived on Zoom for every day of the pandemic. Is that showing up for you all? Or is it just a white?
It's a white screen right now, Rahul.
Okay, let's stop that share and let's try again. Whoa. All right, I'm going to show it from the non-slideshow screen. Something keeps messing up over there, so let me move this out of the way. For those of you who are not familiar, the Wing-Luke Museum is an Asian American and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander American museum here in Seattle, Washington. We've been around for 55 years, named for an immigrant turned citizen turned city council member, Wing Chong Luke, who is also an advocate for equal housing, equal rights, and historic preservation here in the Seattle area. And also his work affected a lot of changes across the state. The projects that we've been funded for were a series of graphic novels pertaining to the incarceration. And it was envisioned as a way to address some of the more controversial sides of the conversation, but then also to begin exploring commonalities and bring social studies and English language arts students together to look at using 2 different lenses, historical or character analysis for that matter, as an example. But the book we've been currently funded for is a reprint of Fighting for America, Me Safe Soldiers. Louise Kashino, who you just saw in that video segment, her husband, Shiro, is highlighted in this and highlighted in a standalone chapter, standalone book, as well as an animated short done by the Seattle Channel. I would like to say that none of this would have happened. It's actually a partnership. We do everything in partnership and in committee with community members. So while we might call folks to the table, the people at the table ultimately decide the direction, the tone, the feel, and in this case, choosing the right graphic artist, the right author, the right person to do the curriculum as well, which happened to be Lawrence Matsuda. He's an ex-educator and poet. He did both the writing for the novel, but then also the curriculum guide that goes along with this. So the museum, with our lead partner, the Nisei Veterans Committee Foundation, has long educated K-12 students. I'm reading this. I never read, I always improvise. Community members about the experiences of Nikkei before, during, and after World War II. Much of our work through the education department here at the museum is to use historic locations on what is now called the Japanese American Remembrance Trail, but we also have other segments that we do separate from that that highlight predominantly life before and after the war. Mostly because very little of the neighborhood is left compared to what it was prior to 1942. But we have been able to gain access to a number of locations to actually immerse students in these stories and in the experience, including this, the stories of Nisei soldiers. We do provide curriculum that is very rooted in primary source material, archives, oral histories, art from particular eras, or even contemporary art. So all the artwork I saw today, I'm in love with. Y'all are doing, it's just beautiful. But the even the Nisei veteran story touches upon key locations, and each of the subsequent novels, the one on the resistors called We Hereby Refuse, as well as one honoring allies of the Japanese American community entitled Friends in Hard Times, circulate around particular geographic locations. And a lot of that is because of the stories that people provided over the years. They highlighted those places where they had the most memories. And so it's through memory that, and oral history, that the authors of each of these novels, and in this case, Fighting for America, Larry, steeped himself in these oral histories in order to produce the work. He also had the benefit of many of these veterans were still with it, not many, but several of the veterans were still with us when we first printed the book several years ago, 5 or 6 years ago. And or even longer now. Good Lord, it's been a while. COVID ruined me. My timing is off. But having those veterans available when we did school programming, maybe showing Mr. Kishino's video, and then asking him questions, and he was a good sport. I think it was very exhausting for him, but he was a good sport, and he was kind of he was a humble guy. I really liked him. But what we've been able to do since, and this is sort of where I'm coming at this presentation, it's a summary, but it's also to say that while we did produce curriculum guides for each of these novels, we have also taken it further and being able to look at the interplay between the three and to look at, for example, archetypes and play out for English language arts classes, understanding the soldier, the resistor, the ally, and the prisoner, and being able to look at the qualities we attribute to particular people start to blend. And as they start to blend between these so-called archetypes, we are now able to have a conversation that is much more human-centered. And I can say that, and this was a question I think Eileen had asked, is if we collect data, not we, but someone else collects data. We do collect data, and we do collect qualitative data. Students will go through the programs with us and do reflection pieces, but they also do pre-visit, pre-museum visit materials as well. And so we can look at both, and we can look at the progress between what they thought and what they learned. And what makes it even better is we leave it pretty open, and so students tend to be pretty honest about whether they got anything out of the experience at all, which some of them don't. But some examples of the education, the curriculum that we developed, we do use, and this was from our experience working with Densho many years ago. I fell in love with visible thinking routines after working with Barb Yasui on this curriculum project. And I've been using them ever since. I'm sure somebody has updated them somewhere, but they're solid and they work. And for a museum where we're not in the classroom and we don't have kids for an extended period of time, like multiple days, they lend themselves incredibly to a 60 to 90 minute experience to be able to not just do things didactically, but to play with the material a little bit. To give you some idea of the artwork was done by Matt Sasaki. And this particular story actually follows, I think this is Turk's story. This is Teruyuki Turk Suzuki, who was a veteran of the 442nd Signature Lost Battalion campaign. He subsequently lost his toes due to severe trench foot. But we chose this particular artist because it was, Matt's work is very visceral. He mostly was doing pen and ink, but also using tablets and things like that. But his work evokes, it's very evocative. The emotional response of the reader is very, very high. And so even patriotic moments of standing in before the flag, and you can see that, the shovels of the coal crew from the camps, stepping forward and saluting. And we wanted him to also think through the minds of these faceless individuals, because Turk is in there somewhere, but the rest aren't identified. And to really get them to express what they might have been feeling, what they might have been experiencing in those moments. And Matt did a fantastic job. And Larry's script, incredibly direct and true to the oral histories. Quotes are perfect. Like there's no, it's a there's no abbreviated quotes. It's everything is up front. But here's the final slide. That is Turk in the upper right and the lower right. He was a winner of a Congressional Gold Medal, 2 Bronze Stars, Purple Heart, and what is it? Unit citations. I'm not sure. I've never found out about that. But I'm going to stop sharing, and if I can find where my controls went, there you are. And I'm more interested in questions since you all are coming on to review potential grants in the next round. I'm very curious looking at the work that I just presented, but what do you want to know about the project, how we approach the project, what we've been able to do. I can give you some more information on the results and who's adopted the content. Let me just do that. We have presented this to, oh, Julie's on the phone, but several hundred teachers around Washington State, Oregon, Idaho, and because of other partnerships we have with groups or entities like the National Endowment for the Humanities, being able to, for multiple years, present this information to approximately 72 teachers every year. And so when you add it all up, we now stay in contact with our NEH program participants. And I would say at least 20 to 30 have used this in their classrooms outside of the state of Washington. So while this has been created specifically for Washington students, and all of the curricular standards are pegged to Washington State, we have been able to expand outside to a lot of teachers.